Tonight, at this table in this room, my younger brother slid business papers toward me like a present, but every line whispered the same thing. Sign here. Lose your roof. Just here, Nadine, Tony says, tapping the folder on this table. I'm Nadine. I guard slow-earned roofs. Across from me sit my brother and his wife, Kara. At the edge of this room, Kara's cousin perches in this chair like a friendly witness. They have brought snacks, smiles, and 3 pens. Tony nudges the top page closer. It's only a guarantee for the lease, he says. You won't have to pay a thing. The landlord just needs your name so we get approved. I keep my hands flat on this table so I don't fold. He thinks this is about helping his dream. I know it is about risking my whole life. 1 week ago, this room was dark and quiet when I woke to the sound of his voice. Tony thought I was asleep in this chair. I stayed still, eyes closed, blanket up to my chin. It'll be fine, he whispered on the phone. My sister always signs once you say, family. She's just sitting on that condo. A woman's voice answered, low and sharp. Then make it sound like security for her, she said. Tell her it means she'll never be alone. My jaw clenched under the blanket. At 63, I have learned to listen when people talk about me as if I am furniture. The next morning in this room, Tony was suddenly sweet. He set a cup on this table with a little bow. For my favorite big sister, he said. For years he has liked me steady, not sentimental. Now he was syrup. Kara and I finally found the perfect space, he went on. Corner unit, lots of light. We'll do a cafe by day, bar by night. Real community place. His eyes kept sliding to the safe in the corner. You always told me to build something solid, he added. I did. I also told him to read everything before he signs. He forgot that part. Before lunch, Kara's cousin, Milo, came to this room with a box of bakery cookies and a lot of praise. He sat in this chair and looked around as if he were already planning where to put his laptop. You've done well for yourself, Nadine, he said. No mortgage, some savings. Why not make your money work for the next generation? That's legacy. He smiled. You don't have kids, right? So helping Tony build the business is kind of like your family project. My fingers tightened around my cup. Legacy, from his mouth, did not sound like care. It sounded like a sales word. When they left, I sat alone at this table, staring at the safe. The condo papers inside are older than Tony's marriage. I bought this place after my divorce, with my share of the settlement and 15 years of careful saving. My ex-husband took his half and spent it on new cars and big opportunities. 3 years later, he had nothing. I had this room, this chair, this table, and a slow plan. No trips, no big gifts, coats worn until the lining gave out. Every spare dollar went into paying down this place and into boring index funds with long names. People now call me lucky. They did not see me here counting coins. That night in this room, I called my old colleague Samira, who now works as a small business accountant. I put my phone on this table and pressed speaker so I could hear my own voice stay calm. Let's say a woman I know has a brother, I began. He wants her to guarantee a cafe lease with her condo and savings. Samira snorted softly. Tell your woman this, she said. Leases like that often say joint and several. That means if his business fails, the landlord can chase her for every cent. It is not helping. It is becoming the backup plan. Her words landed on this table like little weights. Samira helped me build a tiny script. "Make it simple," she said. "You don't co-sign leases for adults. You don't tie your home to anyone's business. And you don't talk big money without a neutral person." I wrote those 3 lines on an index card at this table, my hand only shaking a little. Rule 1. I don't sign business loans or leases for adults. Rule 2. My home is not collateral. Rule 3. Big money talks need a neutral helper. I read them out loud, in this room, until they felt like my own voice, not hers. I also asked Samira to explain the kind of papers Tony would likely bring. "Look for phrases," she said. "Joint and several liability. Security interest in all present and future property. Personal guarantee." She spoke slowly. I copied each phrase into my notebook at this table. "If you see those," she said, "your answer has to be no. Not, 'let me think,' not, 'maybe later.' Just no." When we hung up, I placed the index card beside my tea. This room has heard my crying. Tonight, it heard my policy. Today they came. Tony, Cara, Milo, cookies, smiles, folder. Now we are here at this table. "We wanted to include you from the start," Tony says. "See? We respect you." He opens the folder. The cover sheet is full of bright words. Community anchor. Family-backed enterprise. Shared upside. Deep in the middle, in smaller print, I see Samira's phrases. Personal guarantee. Joint and several. Security interest. The ink looks innocent. The meaning is not. "This part," Tony says, pointing to a paragraph, "just says if the cafe can't pay rent for a month, they can ask you to cover. But that won't happen. We have a business plan." He grins. Cara taps a colourful chart on this table. "We'll be profitable by month 6, she says. "Milo's done all the numbers." Milo lifts his chin. "With your name, we get the good rate," he adds. "Then once the first year is over, we can refinance and take you off. It's just a formality." I tilt my head. Formality is another word for "please don't read closely." "How much do you already owe?" I ask. The room shifts. Tony clears his throat. "Normal stuff. Cards. A little line of credit." I look at the pages. "Here it says you have 3 existing loans," I say. 2 in your name, 1 in Cara's. "Are they current?" Cara's eyes slide away. "Mostly," she says. Milo cuts in. "Look, Nadine, we're builders. Builders use credit. The bank just wants to see that someone steady is standing behind us. That's you." I think of all the years I stood behind other people's crashes. Parents who covered for Tony's bad car loan. Friends who were never repaid. No more. "Why me, and not your own mother?" I ask, still in this chair. Tony shifts again. "Mom doesn't have your credit," he says. "And her house still has a mortgage. Yours is clear." There it is. The truth under the sweet words. "You're sitting on money," Milo adds, trying to make it sound like a joke. This lets it breathe a little. I smile without warmth. "My house is not sitting money," I say. "It is shelter. It is the result of every lunch I packed, every coat I mended, every Friday night I spent in this room instead of at a bar." Tony hears a lecture coming and frowns. "You always think so small," he says. "This is my shot, Nadine. Help me just this once. The landlord needs an answer today. That's why there's a deadline there." He taps the line that says, "Offer valid until," with today's date, printed neatly. Fake urgency in 12-point font. I take the index card from my pocket and place it next to the folder. "What's that?" Cara asks. "My rules," I answer. I wrote them after my divorce, so I wouldn't make decisions from guilt or fear. I read the first line slowly. I don't sign business loans or leases for adults. Tony laughs, but it sounds tight. So you'd rather watch me fail? He says. I shake my head. No, I would rather you learn to build something that does not sit on my shoulders. I read the second line. My home is not collateral. Milo rolls his eyes. It's just paper, he says. It doesn't mean they'll ever need it. I tap the words, security interest in all present and future property. Paper is exactly what makes them able to take it, I say. I read the third line. Big money talks need a neutral helper. I keep my voice even. That means I do not discuss new debts, guarantees, or big transfers without someone in the room whose job is to be fair, I say. An accountant, a lawyer, a counselor. Not your cousin, not my friend, not a neighbor who owes you a favor. Kara bristles. You don't trust us? She asks. This isn't about trust, I reply. This is about power. You three want something from me. That makes you the wrong people to explain the risk. Tony's charm cracks. We don't have time to bring in some stranger, he snaps. The landlord said if we don't send this back tonight, he'll give the place to someone else. Do you want to be the reason my dream dies? His voice shakes on the last word. For a moment I see him at 12, crying over a broken toy I could not afford to replace. My chest aches. But he is not 12 now. He is 42, with a child of his own. If your dream only lives when I stand under it like a pillar, I say softly, then it is not built right. Kara's eyes shine with angry tears. We thought you were different, she says. Generous. You sit here in this room with your paid-off condo and your savings while we struggle. I nod slowly. You see this table? I ask. I have eaten cheap soup at it more nights than I can count. I wore one winter coat for 8 years at this chair. I learned what compound interest is by reading bank pamphlets like novels. My savings did not appear by magic. They grew because I lived small and thought long. I place my hand flat on the folder. I will not undo that for a lease. Milo tries one last angle. Think of it as an investment, he says. We can even write you in as a partner. You'll get a share of the profits. I almost laugh. Show me the line where my share of the losses is limited, I say. He glances at the pages and says nothing. That's what I thought, I add. I am not your investor. I am your sister. Those are different jobs. I slide the folder back across this table. My answer is no, I say. Not now. Not later. Not if the landlord begs. No. Silence falls over this room like a heavy blanket. Tony stares at the folder as if it might open itself. So that's it? He whispers. We're out of options. I feel the pull of his fear. I let it tug at me for one breath. Then I let it go. You are out of this option, I say gently. There is a difference. I lean forward. You can find a smaller space, a different partner, a job while you save. You can build slower, but you cannot build on my roof. His shoulders sag. Kara stands up, chair scraping. We won't forget this, she says. I hope you don't, I answer. I hope you remember that I finally kept one promise to myself. Later, after they leave and the door of this room clicks shut, I sit at this table with my index card in front of me. My hands still shake, but the condo is still mine. The savings I grew from my settlement and my work are still for my food, my heat, my small joys, not for someone else's risk. If you are listening and someone brings a bright business plan to your table and calls it family help, hear me. You are allowed to read every line. You are allowed to ask every question. You are allowed to say no without adding sorry on the end. Your signature is not proof of love. It is proof of risk. Guard it in this room, at this table.